Right, ready?
Yeah.
As someone of the rebel generation, what did you think your purpose was?
Well, we talk about the rebel generation, that is between 1948
48.
to 1971 or further, roughly, yeah. Well, I was born in 1958, so I was right in the beginning of this rebel generation. And it was something that was it's something that was very important to me, because what I experienced as a young boy at the age of 4 or 5 was what was going on television. Television had just come on the scene at that time. And I remember sitting down one day in my front room watching television, and I saw some white policemen with their batons and their sticks and their Alsatian dogs licking black people. And this was in South Africa, throwing water upon them, make the dog bite them up, and it burned me at the age of 5 years old. And so I grew up thinking, no, I can't be here seeing these things and think it's right. Slavery is abolished, so why are they still dealing with us this way? But obviously it's because of our resources in our individual countries of the empire that they really were after, especially after the Second World War, when, Hitler lost the battle, he lost the war, and Britain needed us from the Caribbean, from all over the empire. I'll emphasize empire, as a place where we belong to the empire. And so they went to Jamaica, I can talk about, because my dad was involved in that. They went to Jamaica and they asked anybody who's willing to come to Britain to help them to rebuild Britain on their behalf. This was fine at first, but then the racism from the people who were living in this country became more and more apparent. They didn't really want to say, yeah, it's fine to come and sort out the damaged buildings and so on and so forth. But the rebel generation was about change from the racism that was taking place, institutionalized racism, not just people on the street, but the whole system was against us. And according to them, slavery was finished. But we were still experiencing a lot of situations like that.
Can you describe the events that led to the formation of the Black Parents Movement?
Oh boy. 1974, I was a student at a school in Hornsey called Stationers Company School. Now, I went to a boys' school, but fortunately for us boys who love girls, there was a school around the corner called Hornsey Girls' School. And in 1974, I was in the 5th form of the school. So I had one more year before I left to go to college or wherever I was going to go to work, whatever. Anyway, a group of about 30 of us were outside a shop in Western Park called O'Reilly's Bakery Shop. Now, that is somewhere we used to hang for many years. And we always had respect for Mr. O'Reilly. We never even allowed kids to go in there and steal anything. Or if we knew that was happening, we'd run them away. He was a very respectful man to us, and we were very respectful to him. This particular day, 2 policemen were walking past the group of about 30 of us, as I said. Now, I haven't really grown much since then. I was always 6'3" or 6'2". I think I shrunk, in fact, not grown. So I was about 6'3", and I don't think there was anybody at that point around who was as tall as me in my year. The police walked past us and came back. And out of a group of 30 of us, they picked me, who was standing at the back of the group. out. When they pulled me out, they're saying to me, get back to school. So I thought, why are you coming to ask me that? Or why are you coming to tell me get back to school? I said to him, well, I'm a fifth former now, so that allows me to go out of the building at lunchtime because I was in the fifth form. First, second, third, and fourth years had to stay at lunchtime, and they could only leave when it was time for them to go home. Anyway, that situation escalated where they decided they're going to take me into the school. So they grabbed hold of my hand and started pulling me across the road. When they crossed the road out of the sight, well, out of the sight and vision of the other 20 or 30 people across the road, watching what's going on. When they crossed the road, one of the officers punched me in my belly. I lost my cool and I started to rebel. There's a word for a better word. To tell them, why are you coming on belly for? Why are you doing this to me? I never did anything to you. And then eventually they took me into the school. Now the headmaster's office was in the main building, which is up the road. So he came all the way down to the lower building to have an interview with the police to find out what happened. So they told him their version of events, and I told him my version of events. I was still angry, so I was raised, my voice was raised, and I was expressing myself. Anyway, the policeman, no, the headmaster said, okay, I'll take care of this business to the police, and they left. He asked me what happened, and I told him I wasn't doing anything. And I was picked upon. I was picked upon by these officers. And he said, well, look, anytime you see them out on the road, ignore them. Don't pay them any mind. So that was that. So after that incident, there was no more incidents like that up until April 1975. Still at school, lower sixth. I was with two of my friends walking back to school at lunchtime. As we were walking, a police car with 3 officers was driving past. They looked at us and we looked at them. When I looked, I realized that's the officer that punched me in my belly. So I said, here, Keith, you remember him? And Keith said, yeah. So it's okay. When we looked, they turned around and they came right up to us. Came out of the car, and obviously, the 2 people that I were with were not involved in this. This was between me and the 3 officers. He said to me, I want to search you. But the funny thing about it is I had my jacket over my arm. So what I did, I pulled out all of my pockets on the jacket, in my trousers and everything. I said, I've got nothing, officer. He says, I want to search you. I said, let me just show you something. I've nothing else, officer. So he attempted to put his hand in my pocket. I'm going to tell you, you can't do that to him, sir. And that was the beginning. So when he realized that I was resisting him by not allowing him to put his hands in my pocket, he phoned for reinforcements. When he phoned for reinforcements, in those days, the van that they used to drive was called the Black Mariah, liquor black van. I can't remember what make it was. But anyway, it came with 5 more officers. The 5 officers jumped out of the van, and then they attempted to pick me up, twist my hand behind my back, to put on the handcuffs. They attempted to do all kinds of things, but I was not allowing them to do it. But that doesn't mean I was fighting them. I just stood my ground. That's what I did. And they couldn't do what they wanted to do. And after about maybe 10 or 15 minutes of them attempting to put me in the cell, or in the car, the van, should I say, a teacher, well, what I said, teacher, I think she used to be a dinner lady at the junior school that I went to. So I saw a familiar face and I shouted out, "Miss Maynard, help!" And that was when I freed up myself and allowed them to put me in the van. Went to the police station, that was. When I got downstairs, they attempted to, give me a good kicking. But the mistake that they made is that I spoke to my good friend, one long-time friend named Dragon. And Dragon said, "You hear the police boy, trouble and lick you, just ball out, yeah?" So I tried it and it worked. Yeah, it worked. Because when them decided to, I still had the handcuffs on behind my back, right? And they started to kick me. And I just went, "Whoa!" And I just see them start shivering like this and draw back from me. And I said, "Yes, Dragon, thank you very much, sir." So they left me alone and went about their daily business, whatever they said they want to do. About 20 minutes to half an hour later, I saw the headmaster come to the police station. And he said to me, "You know something, McDaniel, if it was so-and-so or so-and-so or so-and-so, I wouldn't come. But when I heard it was you, I came." And he actually I was released into his reconnaissance to take me out of the station, take me home to my parents. And that's what he did. He explained the situation to my mom and dad. And he also made a recommendation that I would speak to somebody called Mr. John LaRose. Now, Mr. John LaRose has been a political activist for many, many years. In fact, the bookshop that he started is the first Black bookshop to be opened in Britain. And to this day, that bookshop is still there, run by the family. Whole heap of manners and respect to Mr. John LaRose and all of the other people in the organization, Darcus Howell, Ian McDonald, who became a QC, an Irish man, who went through the situation in this country where it was no Blacks, no dogs, and no Irish, right? So he knows about things. And because he's a barrister, he was the one who defended me against this so-called system, what they're trying to evolve. Basically, they wanted to arrest me and give me a record before I would reach the age of 18 years of age so that it could mess up my career. But that never happened. That didn't work for them. Yes, I went to court and went through the whole thing. They were lying through their teeth, but, I was found guilty. Now, if I was guilty of assaulting a police officer or using bad behavior, bad language and everything, I couldn't understand why the police decided to give me, I can't remember, £10 fine, I think it was, conditional £10 fine, if I remember right. So we decided to appeal against it anyway, because it was a natural fact that they were lying through their teeth. And they thought that, when they stand up in front of the magistrate, whatever they say, the magistrate is going to say, "Okay, that's how it was. Now I'm going to charge you." But it didn't work out that way in 1975. And what I forgot to say was the Black Parents and Black Students movement was formed the same night of the incident with the police outside my school. And there's a lady, she's no longer with us. God rest her soul, Mrs. Sylvester, Mr. and Mrs. Sylvester offered their home for us to have our first meeting. And that's when the Black students and the Black youth movement was formed. And from then, that was when our history started to turn around and things started to look better for us as the first generation Black youths in England, but also for my children who have grown up and are reached adult stage. And you know something? They're doing fine. I'm so proud of each and every one of them because they didn't allow the system to overcome them and make them a victim of that system. So enough manners and respect. And to everybody else who is looking at this, let them realize this was the rebel generation. Yes, we are the rebel generation. And I would just say one more thing. You know, they talked about the Black Panthers, Martin Luther King, they talk about Malcolm X, they talk about Kwame Nkrumah, and many others. Nelson Mandela. There's so many of us freedom fighters who went through a whole lot of struggles just to allow us to walk this planet free, just like everybody else. Not because we were enslaved, that we're going to be enslaved forever. So now is the time for us to release ourselves. And don't forget, a one God, one aim and one destiny. And that is the way we're supposed to move as Africans born in England, Jamaica, anywhere in the world we are.
Next question. How did you feel about becoming a young father?
Well, that was very, very, very interesting. But for me, it was horror. I was absolutely frightened, horrified. I don't know. I wasn't prepared for it. That's a fact. I was not prepared for being a young parent at 17 years old. But you know something? To me, that was the best thing. When I think about it, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. For the simple fact that I had to face up to my responsibility from an early age, from the age of 17, in fact. And, you know, they've got this hype, you know, yes, I would like my first child to be a boy. Well, it didn't work out like that for me. I had a girl, right? And let me tell you something. That was fine by me because anywhere I'm going, she's going too, right? It no matter. Sometimes when we lived in Tottenham and my parents lived in Hornsey, sometimes we used to have to walk from Lordship Lane to Turnpike Lane up towards Crouch End to go and see my parents. You know, maybe my few little food and thing like that, you know, because time was hard. But Selena was there from the beginning and still is. Don't get me wrong, I love all my children, but she was my first child. And we managed to maintain a relationship that was unbreakable. So it just made life easier for me as well.
What was it like being told that Tan had lupus?
That was something else. Simply because the way how everything happened, it was like surreal. It was surreal. One day, we're in the house, and Tanisha came to me and she said, Dad, I want to go upstairs, but I can't go upstairs. So what do you mean by that? I can't go upstairs, Dad. I go, well, you can't walk up the stairs? And she said, no. But then she showed me a lump that come up in her hand, right here in her hand. Now, I don't know where it came from, but it was big enough that you could see it. And I'm wondering, what's that? Eventually, I lifted her up and carried her upstairs to do what she needed to do upstairs. And then I had to bring her back downstairs again. So that's rang the alarm bells for me. I said, well, we need to go and contact the hospital because we don't know what this is. It just comes up and it's done something to her body where she can't move her body. It's this. Anyway, went to the hospital. They admitted Tanisha. She was in the hospital for about 2 weeks where they did different kinds of tests and so on and so forth. And then they came with the diagnosis. The diagnosis was lupus. Now, to be honest, I have never heard that word in my life. Someone said, what are they talking about? No. And when the doctor said, the word lupus is supposed to mean wolf in French, I think Latin or French, one of them, yeah. And so how does that have anything to do with illness? And the doctor said to me, the consultant said to me, lupus has so many different ways of affecting people that you can't pin it down to a particular thing. But what he did say to me was, she most probably won't make it. She could die in 2 days, she could die in 2 weeks, or she could die in 2 years. That's what the consultant said to myself or my wife at that time. Now, when I start finding out about lupus, it's something that affects mainly Black people. Just like sickle cell anemia is our thing, and thalassemia would be a version of it that would affect Mediterranean people. But anyway, I had an aunt, my dad's brother's wife, who was a nurse in America. So I got in contact with her to see if she could give me some more information on what this illness is all about. And she said to me, yes, I've got information. And also, there's a way of treating lupus, but it's herbal, it's not pharmaceutical. So we went down that road. We got the things that Tanisha needed, although she was still taking the medication that was prescribed by the hospital. And that was another thing. The amount of medication that Tanisha took daily, to me personally, I mean, I wanted her to get better, so take the medication, because I don't know anything better than the hospital, what the illness is. So I noticed that Tanisha started to put on weight. I said, put down weight enough. Look at me. I'm 65 and I'm skinny. That's how my daughter was, tall and slim. But after a few years, she put on a whole lot of weight, and that was simply because of the medication that she was taking daily. She couldn't go to school, so she was allowed to stay home, and she was given a computer, and that is how she continued her studying while going through this motion. I would let's say, personally, she had the illness for about 8 years before she finally succumbed to whatever is to happen next, which is no life. Now, it's really amazing, but the person we're talking about she's an enigma. I think I'd better put it that way, because whoever knows Tanisha would agree with me. I mean, now I say nothing else about that. Okay? When she had a funeral, every nation on this planet was at Tanisha's funeral. That is the kind of aura that she displayed to everybody.
Then how did you feel when Selena was diagnosed with lupus?
Well, that was really a shocking thing, because after Tanisha died, we were all tested for lupus and nobody else had it. including Selena. But then she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. But then, after a while, we found out that Selena had lupus too. And when that happened, I started thinking about Tuskegee in the 1930s, when they were experimenting on black men in the army, and they were experimenting on them by introducing lupus, vaccines of drugs, cocaine, heroin, LSD, syphilis, and those type of things. And they were testing us on those things. So, and they weren't telling people they were doing it. That was just undercover. And so I started to think about things like that. What are they doing to us in this country? Is this the system at work, or is this some unfortunate thing? I don't think it was unfortunate. It was the system at work. Because to this day, there is still not a cure for lupus to this day. So we had to just try and follow the routes that we were taking with Tanisha, which is using green barley, which you couldn't get in this country. It could be got from America, and my aunt used to send it to us. And that's how we had to go with Selena. Now, Selena nearly died. And during that period of time she was in hospital, I see her slowly deflated. Like I could see her dying in front of my face. I said, nah. You know something? If Selena's going to die, she's going to die at home with her family. She's not dying in this hospital, North Middlesex Hospital. She's not dying here. So I made the decision to take her out of the hospital and go home, and we will try our utmost to stop this from happening. To see another one of my daughters die. Hey, remember, there's only 2 daughters I have, you know? And 1 gone. And then they want to, no. I said, she's not dying in this hospital. We go home and we treated her as much as we could. All of the good things that we knew, we just introduced them. So it was 2000. Selena was diagnosed with lupus, and she fought. She fought like the warrior she is. So this thing cannot overtake her. And you know, because of misinformation from the hospital, we wanted to complain to the hospital board about the doctor who gave us the misinformation that she had rheumatoid arthritis, when all the time with lupus she had. And when she was tested along with the rest of us, she didn't have it then. So where that come from all of a sudden? That's another question I want to ask. Anyway, I give God thanks, because right now, my daughter is doing this interview now, alive and kicking in 2023.
Yeah, last and final question. Can you see an upside to your experiences of lupus?
The upside that I can see for lupus in particular is this. The Lupus Hub was formed at the end of last year. And since that has happened, the amount of response the Lupus Hub has been getting, and the amount of people that have reached out, because this illness, as I said, is so elusive. We don't know when and how it's going to come to you. We don't know. But when it does come, and you see the symptoms, just call the Lupus Hub. They'll have something to tell you about how to deal with this situation. And if you do have it, how to live with lupus, because you can live beyond it. It's not an illness that because you have it, you're going to die. It's not like that. It's just unfortunately that my daughter was very, very young. My daughter at the time was the third youngest person in Britain to be diagnosed with lupus. Because you have lupus, you don't have to die. You can live beyond lupus and also have a happy life. If you know what's going on with you and you know how to deal with it, it will make your life much easier. And where the upside also is if we could find a cure for it, but that's the future. That's what we're looking to do now. Okay.
Thank you very much.